The last team on our list is the New York Football Giants, and they kicked off their draft strong by selecting in the top 10 Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal. Big-time prospects there, tops of the board on some people's list, and then followed it up in the second round with one of Aaron's favorite prospects, Wandel Robinson, the wide receiver out of Kentucky, and that is actually where I want to start before we get into really Kayvon Thibodeau and Evan Neal. The Wandel Robinson pick, you, Aaron, you're high on him. One of your my guys really on of the draft, especially in the wide receiver position. You look at their wide receiver depth chart, Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney's still there. Now you throw Wandel Robinson in. Where does he fit? I'm not saying it's a bad pick. You gave that one a B. That's a good grade, especially for your very hard standards. Where does Wandel Robinson fit in with this Giants team?
I think he's going to make an immediate impact, and not in the sense of some fantasy terms where he's going to have 1,000 yards and do all that stuff. To me, it's a weapon on offense to give Daniel Jones the best chance to succeed. We talked about Daniel Jones throwing to Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard. Nice little players, but are they dynamic? We saw the difference in their offense when Saquon Barkley is going and dynamic, and when Kadarius Toney came in and was being dynamic. They were able to make some more plays in that offense. Now you bring over a Brian Dable. You get him a weapon like Wandel Robinson. This is about putting weapons around Daniel Jones to see if he is the guy. And I don't think this was a short-term play. I think this was a long-term play on Brian Dable's part. Sterling Shepard's probably not going to be there much longer. You talked about already trying to move Darius Slayton. That doesn't leave very many weapons there, right? You still have a Kadarius Toney. Saquon Barkley said to be in good shape. We'll see if he can stay healthy. But outside of that, they don't have much. Wandel Robinson is that kind of piece. He is electric. The man, his last season at Kentucky, when they shifted full-time to receiver, he had 100 catches, 1,400 yards, had another 100 on the ground, had 7 touchdowns. This is a guy, if you get him the ball in his hands, he is going to make plays. I think that's really, really important for the Giants to see if Daniel Jones is that guy.
Can you shut up about Saquon Barkley? I'm done with that. I'm done. I said it last year. I said the same thing every year. Stop talking about Saquon Barkley. That was like I was in high school when that dude was good. Okay, so let's chill. About to graduate college for any purpose. Anyway, looking at this offense, I do like the Wandale pick. But once again, this Giants team had so many needs, right? They need cornerback help. They ended up getting one eventually. They had so many needs. I didn't think wide receiver was a need there. I mean, this is a team that's far off. And yeah, they pull up the graphic there. I mean, they did need some O-line help. They lose a Will Hernandez. They did replace him with Glowinski. But still, I think this team needed more help in other areas than wide receiver. They had Kadarius Toney they drafted last year. I think they were fine at one position that they actually had depth on the roster was at wide receiver. I'm not a huge fan. Sure, he might be a dynamic playmaker like you talk about. But other than that, I don't see the need to draft that position right there.
You're wrong. You talked about they didn't have a need and they had needs everywhere else. They still have James Bradbury on their roster. They still have Xavier McKinney in the secondary. They still have Adoree Jackson as a secondary in their secondary. Their offensive line consists of Andrew Thomas, John Feliciano, Mark Lewinsky, and now Evan Neal. They needed an edge rusher. Last year, they went out and got Azeez Ojulari, and then now they got Kayvon Thibodeau. They already have Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence in the interior of that defensive line. Their linebackers are Blake Martinez and Tay Crowder. Where are these holes that you're talking about? The biggest hole for the New York Giants has been at quarterback. What do you do when you have a quarterback that's your biggest hole and you can't really address it? You go out and get them every weapon you can. Yes, you may not want to hear about Saquon Barkley. That's fine. All I said was he's said to be healthy. I said I need to see it. That's a big question mark. But you talk about these other guys. Darius Slayton, are you relying on Darius Slayton to make Daniel Jones great? Sterling Shepard to make him great? No, I'm going to go out and get me some weapons. I can put the ball in these guys' hands early, let them run after the catch, and those are going to be the electric big plays that you need out of an offense that hasn't had many big plays. The depth chart is fine. You look at the Giants on paper, they should be a team that's contending for the NFC East. The big problem is Daniel Jones. The big problem is Daniel Jones. What is that? What we talked about it last year. The defense of the New York Giants is solid. We talked about that. The issue has been Daniel Jones.
They were good 2 years ago. They were solid
what's the issue
last year.
What's the issue on the Giants?
Fantastic job 2 years ago.
What's the issue on the Giants, Dylan? What's the
They
issue?
still need okay. No, I don't blame you with your point. Yeah, I'm not saying Daniel Jones is legit by any stretch of the imagination. Don't even put my name attached to that take, okay? But I will say, looking at this roster, I think there were needs. I know right now you mentioned James Bradbury, right? James Bradbury's still in the mix. That guy's still potentially a cut. They have so many salary cap issues.
They're not
right
cutting
now.
him. They're looking to trade him to move that cap. No, they're not cutting him because
that cap.
Yes, they can't cut him.
More cornerback depth. That's what I would like to see them go on there. Is a cornerback instead of Wandel. They went to the wrong side of the ball for a playmaker. They
went cornerback the like 14 picks later in Cordell Flott, a guy you praised.
Yeah, I like Flott.
So they got Cordell Flott and they got, or in the third round, they got Cordell Flott and they got Wandel Robinson. Later in the draft, they went and got a Dane Belton, who I wanted to talk about as one of the steals of the draft. I think that pick was amazing. Playmaker out of Iowa. He's going to be a problem in the NFL. So they did address those needs. They didn't address it where you wanted them to address it, is what you're saying. You wanted him to get somebody in that.
I will die on that hill. Tight end
it very much was a need for the Giants. If you look beyond this season, maybe this season they could have got away with a Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, and then one of those Darius Slayton or Sterling Shepard. But those guys are probably likely to be gone after this season. Kenny Golladay will still be there. Kadarius Toney, mind you, has had problems, and they aren't seeing eye to eye. I know he came to camp, but something is not right there, and I don't think they love Kadarius Toney right now, and I think that's part of the reason they went out and got a Wandel Robinson, who is a very similar player. Get the ball in his hands, electric with the ball, and I think that may have had something to do with it, but I'm never mad when you have a young quarterback that you're trying to make your franchise quarterback, and somebody goes out and gets a bunch of weapons. Like, to me, that's okay. Daniel Jones, their hope that he's still good. Otherwise, they would have already moved on from him. So, there's other needs on the Giants, but I believe the Giants on paper have a chance to contend for this division if Daniel Jones can be the guy that they drafted him to be. Now, obviously, that's the biggest if.
Yeah. Good chance.
I hope he gets hurt, because if Tyrod Taylor comes in and starts, that team will probably beat my Dallas Cowboys for the division. I'm dead ass serious about that.
Stop.
Tyrod beats Dak.
Oh man,
it would not. I'm telling you, I'm not making this up. I'm not saying this to make some headline. If Tyrod Taylor is the starting quarterback for the Giants with that roster, it would not surprise me if they're contending for the division, because the biggest issue on the Giants. Oh my God! Will you stop with the Saquon Barkley slander? I get it. He's been hurt.
All right, let me go into one more pick on the Giants as we wrap things up. They did get Cordell Flott, who is a big time my guy for this guy down here. Loves some Cordell Flott. But Dane Belton and Darren Beavers, two guys we've talked about on this show before in the pre-draft process. Aaron, you wanted to bring up Belton, and who was the Beavers guy? Who's the big Beavers guy on the show?
That's
AJ.
Well, AJ. I liked Beaver too, but I think AJ. I think AJ could handle that.
Oh, he's a Bearcat. So this is right up AJ's alley here. So what?
Yes.
What makes
that's why he rated him so high.
What makes you love the Beav here?
I mean, Cincinnati. No, honestly, this for me is the value pick. You talk about the linebackers they have and being in a place with good stock. This guy Darren Beavers is a guy who works. He works at it hard, and he's one of those players who is instinctual. When he's on the field, he understands what's about to happen. He knows how to make the play. Now, granted, he's going in the 6th round for a reason. He's not an uber athlete. He's not super fast. Sometimes he has a hard time beating off blocks. But when he's got a chance at an open field tackle, best believe he's making it. When he's got a chance to read the play and bust it up early, best believe he's making it. He was a big part of what they were doing in Cincinnati on that defense, obviously with the shutdown corners they had on both sides. Darren Beavers will get it done. He can make his mark on special teams with New York, and with learning behind a guy like Blake Martinez, he will step up. I don't think he's this year. He may not even be next year. I believe he'll fit in next year, but I believe in a couple years he'll be one of those guys that shows his mark as a linebacker in the NFL, whether it's with the Giants, which I would imagine, or if it's somewhere else. I think he'll be around for a bit.
I love his physicality. You mentioned that. Like he's gonna jump out off the tape. Like you're gonna when you're watching the Giants play or when you watch Cincinnati play and they're playing defense, you notice that guy. He's physical. I think he's going to be a great matchup for tight ends in the NFL because he plays with that physicalness. They're not just going to be able to manhandle linebackers. Some of the smaller linebackers that the NFL has gone to, I think he'll be able to play physical with them, get up in their chest and make them have to earn everything they're getting, especially when they're getting in and out of their breaks. Again, he just jumps off the tape to me. I really, really liked him. I mentioned him when we did our pre-draft process as one of the guys that I thought would go a lot higher than he did, and he fell. So, again, I think that was great value in the 6th round. I don't know where I graded him as, but I know I graded him pretty decent for a pick that late.
Yeah, we like the beef. We like the beef. So let's see what everything looks like here with our GPAs and the way we calculated it. Again, we got the Muke scale here. We got the Muke-Siah scale here. We value the first rounds to third. What's your scale?
Yeah.
Tell the people.
So the scale is the 1st to 4th round is graded on a 5-credit unit score. And then the remaining draft picks are credited on 2 units. So I don't know, probably people are like, whatever you're talking about, but basically it weighs the first 4 rounds a little bit heavier than we rate the last 3 rounds, just because those rounds are less likely to hit. But you might find some steals there. So if you graded them really high, gives a little bump up for their GPA.
Is this a Full Sail grading curriculum?
I grade a lot better than Full Sail, because otherwise half the people at Full Sail wouldn't graduate if I was grading. Just saying.
That's what I'm saying. It's got the AJ grades. It's got the AJ grades where everyone just gets a passing grade and moves them along. Maybe move them along. But this is what it looks like here. Cowboys at a 2.83. The Eagles at a 3.0. The Commanders, oh, yikes, a 1.98. That's not passing. I don't care where you're at. In high school, I wouldn't have passed that shit. And a 3.02.
Wouldn't be academically eligible.
I would not. I would not. And there were times in high school where I had that. But no, the Giants at a 3.02, there was never a time in any of my life where I've had a 3.02 or a 3.0 higher. But the Giants did it in large part because really Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau were just when you're on that weighted scale and you got 2 A+ to kick off the draft. I mean, that's the way to go. So congratulations to the New York Giants for winning the NFC East best draft grade.